I think you will agree with me if I tell you this morning that Moses was a real leader who had the welfare of his people in mind. But not only that, Moses enjoyed intimacy with God, the God he knew firsthand, the God he met face to face. The first reading tells us that we are told that Moses talked to the Lord like a man would talk face to face to another man. We're talking here of intimacy. Intimacy with God to the point that he can say, I know whom I believe. The Lord, a God who is gracious and merciful. And only one who has experienced the mercy and compassion of God can say this. Unless we are on intimate footing with God, we will have no right to talk about a God who is gracious and merciful. And Moses had that perfect right. Of course, Moses was a victim of chismes. They were complaining, why did you take us out of Egypt? To bring us to misery out here in the desert. But Moses, despite all the complaints and the fake news and all the bad press releases about him, kept in touch with God before the tent of meeting and inside the tent of meeting. And when he was on intimate conversation with God, then the cloud by day and fire by night signaled the presence of God. And then the people would come out of their tents and stand in honor of the God who was walking by. I'm saying this because we need to learn a lesson or two from Moses, and I will illustrate this in a short while. I cannot forget what our novice master, Father Coliandro, told us many, many years ago. He talked about a certain brother who was temporarily professed in India, and the superiors decided to send him out because he was not very brilliant, he was not quite capable, and so they thought he had no vocation. But then that afternoon before he left, they were working in the fields, and he was in charge of burning the leaves, the dry leaves. And he did, as usual, he was working very hard that afternoon. And as he was burning the pile of leaves, his clothes caught fire, and he was burned together with the leaves. And that was the day before he was supposed to leave home for Italy. And when he was buried, the tombstone says, I know him whom I have believed. When you are on intimacy with God, no matter what bad people say, bad things about you, you can walk with head high up and tell the world, I know him whom I believed. And this is divine intimacy. Padre Pio, they invented all sorts of lies about him. Cardinals in the Roman Catholic Church invented false fake news about him. And so he was forbidden to hear confessions, even to say Mass in public. But I know him whom I have believed. Take heart. If you suffer because people talk ill of you and they don't even know you from Adam, and this is the bad news about fake news. People say bad things about you. I never lived with them. They don't know me from Adam. What right do they have to say bad things about me? But this is suffering. My favorite saint next to Saint John Bosco is San Benedetto Menni. And I think I have said this story a number of times here in this church. Saint Benedict Menni was exiled from his own order and was exiled to France. Again, they invented stories about him. He founded a congregation of sisters, and he was forbidden to talk to them, even to write letters to them. while in exile in France. And when he died, they dug up all his writings, and what did they discover? Every day he was talking about doing these particular things: rogar, trabajar, sufrir, padecer, amar a Dios y al prójimo y callar. Pray, work, suffer, endure, love God and neighbor, and keep silent. While suffering, that became the motto of this congregation of sisters. Rogar, trabajar, sufrir, padecer, amar a Dios y al prójimo y callar. Shut up. Why? You have the best. When you're in intimacy with the Lord, you have everything, and you don't need anything much else. So, there was another story about somebody who worked here, Giuliano Venturini. Again, he was supposed to have been sent out. He worked in Cebu, so he was supposed to go back home to Italy, but then he got sick and died. The Lord wanted him to stay. I know him whom I have believed. So take heart. If people talk ill of you, rejoice. But be sure, stay there at the tent of meeting and make sure you're on intimate footing with the Lord. The gospel talks about intimacy also. Jesus dismissed the crowds and went into the house. And he called his disciples into the house. Oikos nomos. This is the reason why the history of salvation was called by a father of the church as oikonomia, the economy of salvation. The economy of salvation has to do with the household, and the household has to do with management. Economy has to do with management. You manage the affairs of the house. And what affairs are we talking about? Only one thing, and only one thing: salvation. And if we do and work for salvation, you belong to God's household.